When I was a child, I was often disappointed whenever a Japanese game was localized for America, but never came to my humble island nation of Australia. Final Fantasy VI, or 3 as it was known as on the SNES, Chrono Trigger, Chrono Cross, the list goes on. However, there were some rare times when the reverse happened, and a game was localized for EU, Australasia, and not America. Such is the case with this strange little gem that I will be discussing in this video. Ufouria, the Saga, came out on the Nintendo Entertainment System in 1991 in Japan and 1992 in PAL territories. I distinctly remember hiring the game from my local Video Easy, Australia's version of Blockbuster, and having a ton of fun with it. Though as I grew older, I eventually forgot about my adventures, and even the game's name. Ufouria the Saga, known as Hebereke in Japan, has a basic premise. 4 friends live in the world of Ufouria, so called as each friend represents one of the 4 races of the world. One day, the friends find a yawning chasm yielding a glittering gem in its depths. In their excitement to get a closer look, 3 of the 4 friends overshoot the precipice and tumble into the gaping darkness. Worried for his friends, it's up to our protagonist Bop-Louie to carefully navigate the treacherous terrain, find his friends, and take everyone home. First and foremost, the game is an action platformer, with light puzzle elements. In fact, before the term Metroidvania was coined by the mashup of Metroid games with any Castlevania game that followed Castlevania Symphony of the Night, Ufouria the Saga ticked all the boxes. An open world, gaining new abilities to progress, and having to backtrack to older areas to proceed. If you're a fan of the Metroidvania style, then you'll undoubtedly have a lot of fun with this game. Without reading the manual first or letting the title screen play into a brief intro, you may find yourself lost and unsure of what to do after having been dumped straight into the world. Taking control of Bop-Louie, we must first find his 3 friends, who don't remember him at all, and convince them to join us. His 3 friends are Freon Leon, a lizard man, Shades, a ghost, and Gil, a fishman. To set them straight, Bop-Louie must engage them in a duel, which almost feels like a combination of a Mega Man boss fight with a sprinkling of high school dodgeball. In each duel, you must pick up a severed human head ball and throw it at your friend, beating them into submission. Upon winning, the friend will regain their senses and join your adventure. Anytime during the game, you can then press select to open the status menu and switch to any of the characters that you have saved. Each comes with their own strengths and weaknesses that are necessary for the adventure. For example, Bop-Louie's relationship with deep water is the same as baby's first swimming lesson, and anyone but Freon Leon will play hit the deck whenever walking on iced surfaces. A variety of minor enemies exist throughout the world for Bop-Louie and his friends to dispatch, in addition to environmental hazards that must be overcome. Unlike the NES Mario titles, there are no pitfalls, so there's no possibility of an instant death from falling down a hole. However, I'd caution to avoid any spikes or lava. Spikes will damage you severely, and lava is basically a one-way ticket back to the start of the game. Sure, you don't die immediately when you hit it, but your character will flail about as though they are in water, all the while gulping up your precious health until the counter hits 0. The only way to survive this is if you have Gil, quickly switch to him, and hope you can get out of the lava, before your health abandons you. Good luck. During your adventure, you may find that your friends are a little lacking in talent, but don't despair because Bop-Louie and his friends all have special abilities that make them useful when obtained. After finding an ability, holding the B button will charge up a character's attack until a heart forms and floats above their head. Pressing the B button again will unleash the attack. Bop-Louie will shoot his head toward any enemy before him. Freon Leon can freeze enemies into a block of ice with a wintry breath. Shades lowers his glasses, unleashing his deadly eyeballs upon any unsuspecting foe like heat-seeking missiles. And Gil belches up a bomb that can destroy obstacles blocking your path. I must note though that when charging an attack you need to complete the charge in one take. If you are interrupted, you must start the charge from the beginning. Also, you cannot hold a charged attack for too long, as after a while the heart you manifest will just poof into nothing, like some long-lost forgotten love. Additionally, Bop-Louie can also find suction cups that enable him to scale walls. Finding all the characters' abilities, and especially Bop-Louie's wall climbing skill, is tantamount to exploring all corners of the map. Speaking of maps, the game actually has one which can show you where you are, where abilities are located, and also where 3 keys are, of which you need to collect to open a foreboding temple door that blocks the way home. When I first acquired the map, I thought it was useless. However, once I collected the other items that were related to it, I found that it became useful and a necessity for getting around. Compared to Metroid, which gives you no map at all, forcing you to either draw your own or fumble around like an idiot, I appreciate it a lot. The explorable area is quite large for a NES game, and I found that I often refer to the map to prevent myself from getting lost. The game controls relatively well for a platformer. The controls are tight, and I never felt at any time that my game overs were the fault of the game. I enjoyed that each character had a variation of heaviness to them when jumping, which reflected their character. I typically tended to play as Bop-Louie most of the time, as he had a standard jump and moved quickly over land. The other characters do have their uses, as I mentioned above, but I generally only switched to them when I needed to use their abilities. One thing that did bother me slightly was that to take out enemies, you needed to hold down on the D-pad as you connected with them when jumping on their heads. If you didn't do this, then you take damage instead. And if you're about to die, taking out enemies in this fashion is the only way that you can sometimes get them to drop a pill that restores your health. In theory it wasn't that bothersome, but after playing for 2 hours, my thumb was starting to feel a little sore. Overall, the game takes about 4 hours to complete, though there is no save system built into the game. If you want to take a break, you may use an item that provides you with the password, which is a huge jumble of coloured dots. I don't know what it was with Nintendo and their password systems. Whomever thought of it, and that the consumer would enjoy putting in a long or convoluted password each time they wanted to resume their game, was sorely mistaken. Not to mention the chance for human error in either writing down the password wrong or inputting it incorrectly. It's just a disaster waiting to happen. Ufouria is a fitting title for this game, as the way it's designed makes me wonder if the developers were undergoing a euphoric phenomenon when developing the title. Many of the enemies are just bizarre. Take the Wandering Lips for example. Using their tongue to slide across the ground, just one lick and you become wounded. There's also snorkeling tanuki, and strange ghost-like heads striding around that look awfully a lot like Bop-Louie's severed head. Not to mention that balls that you can get from a dropped enemy look like they have seen something forbidden, or that they just finished smoking some grass. Oh, and I mustn't forget the drooling platforms, whose drool serves as a rope to climb over cliffs. Though I do need to mention that the Japanese version of this game is called Hebereke, which can translate to either being drunk or untrustworthy. Overall, the design of the world is compact enough to make navigating it quite feasible with the right companions and abilities. I also liked the different biomes that existed, presenting a variety of challenges to the cast, like a minecart maze, or a platforming puzzle over the instant death lava. Musically, there aren't many tracks to speak of, but of what exists, I love the theme called Stage Theme Sky. I distinctly remember it from when I played the game as a kid, and it reminds me of Shades throwing his eyes out of his head and around the stage. It feels very floaty and almost reminiscent of the Sky theme from Super Mario Bros. 3. I also liked that when you discovered a secret, a short ditty would play, like how it does in the later Legend of Zelda titles. Also, the game over music is almost mocking, with its last few notes heckling that you cannot possibly beat this game. It sure made me gather my mettle for one more attempt, though that often turned into yet another. Ufouria the Saga is a game that most North American gamers would have missed out on when they were children, and for that I think it's a shame. With the mix of an explorable world with backtracking and abilities that made it seem like a Metroidvania before its time, I feel like many would have enjoyed it when the game was in its prime. In Japan, the game was called Hebereke, which went on to spawn several sequels, all in different genres, many of which didn't see the light of day outside of Japan. If you are looking for a fun, short romp through an interesting, if sometimes bizarre world, then Ufouria the Saga is definitely for you. By the way, are there any games that you missed the opportunity to play as a kid, whether it be from region problems or other? Let me know in the comments. This has been Venwa with a review of Ufouria the Saga for the Nintendo Entertainment System. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to like or subscribe as it helps me out a bunch. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you all again next time. Bye bye for now.